How can I use my small SSD as a cache for a larger hard disk? I would like to use a small SSD disk as a cache for a large hard disk. I realize there are hardware-based products that do this: Highpoint Rocket Hybrid HBA, Intel Smart Response and others. There is only one software-only product that I could find, ExpressCache by Diskkeeper. ExpressCache intelligently and automatically combines the best attributes of SSDs and HDDs without any effort or prerequisite knowledge from the user, so users get the best of both worlds: dynamic performance and scalable capacity. Since SSDs as small as 4 GB can be used, it provides an incredibly affordable solution for manufacturers. Comprised of user mode and kernel mode components, ExpressCache uses the SSD as an intelligent cache, coupled with an HDD, to improve overall system performance and greatly speed up Windows PC startup, application launches and data access speed. However, this product is OEM only. I looked for alternatives without any success. I cannot understand this. It sounds like a great idea, no additional hardware is needed, and it could really boost the disk performance without spending a fortune. So, I'm asking if anyone knows any software that does this, either for Windows or Linux. Or if you think this is a bad idea, I'd like to know why. Note, ReadyBoost is not really suitable for this. It is built with the assumption that disk writes are really expensive, has very little effect on systems with plenty of RAM, and does not scale properly if your SSD is 100 GB plus.
How large your SSD is. Probably the best effect you'll achieve by installing the entire OS and software on SSD, while storing bulks of data on your HDD. If your SSD is small, then it could be useful to put a page file on it. I doubt Windows will put much of your files to cache, but at least it will allow you to have recent used applications memory and files cached in RAM, while allowing for fast switching to not so recent used applications, which will reside in page file, which is, in turn, on SSD.
One can use the Windows I/O technologies of ReadyDrive and ReadyBoost. Because these technologies date from before SSDs were introduced, there is little information on whether they do work with SSD or how well. For ReadyBoost, see some hint on how can I use my SSD as a ReadyBoost cache disk, although this other thread claims the opposite. ReadyDrive is a feature of Windows Vista that enables Windows Vista or later computers equipped with a hybrid drive or other flash memory caches, such as Intel Turbo Memory, to boot up faster and resume from hibernation in less time. One can also put the page file on the SSD, although with limited expected improvement if your system memory is sufficient. The best improvement will come, as remarked by Pen Artur, from installing Windows on the SSD.
There's a very interesting piece of software for Linux, in use by very busy servers. This URL. On a SATA 8 magnetic rotational drives in a RAID 6 setup, I get serious performance boost. Random read with SATA flash cache SSD device, 540 read, 420 write, saturates my SATA bus to almost 90 to 95%. I have 280 MB read in peak times, 270 MB write, only in simulated load, never reached in production. It lasts for about a half year now. The disk drive writes are 20 at 30 MB/s, use spare I/O time.
There are several ways to use an SSD as a cache for your regular hard drive. This is not a new idea, and already has several implementations. In Windows, the best implementation is by Velo, Dataplex. It has read caching and optional write caching. Unfortunately, like ExpressCache, it is available to OEMs only. The cheapest way to get it is to buy an aux SSD, which packages a PSI adapter with a small SSD and uses the Dataplex software to cache your existing hard drive. There are, however, few software implementations too. FancyCache, it works like you might expect, performing read and write caching at the block layer. It primarily exists as a memory cache, but recently has gained support for a second layer SSD cache, a bit like the ZFS-L2 ARC, which can be arbitrarily large. If you are just looking to max out on IOPS at the cost of write durability, perfectly fine in conjunction with IOPS. For example, an alternative might be something like SuperCache. This will use RAM only, no SSD. But unlike the others, will happily exceed 100,000 IOPS on commodity hardware. Very useful for caching the block device containing database indexes, for example. Essentially giving RAM disk-like performance for any sized volume, assuming the underlying device can keep up with the write volume. In Linux, things are a bit nicer. As a previous poster mentioned, you have FlashCache. It works rather well, but its performance varies greatly with your workload. In many cases with poor access locality, it will not perform as well as you might expect. Not sure why that is, but for most workloads this is a great option. The best option, though the code is still not quite production ready, is Bcake. More information here. Though some of it is outdated, it has the best performance of any SSD cache I have yet tried, and unlike all the other options mentioned, supports caching multiple block devices on a single cache. It also supports, though I haven't personally tried this, it may not work yet, multiple cache devices, so you can use multiple cheaper SSDs for maximizing your IOPS. The code is in a Git repository. There is talk of merging it into the next kernel release, though it hasn't yet been decided for sure. Personally, I find the best performing option is Bcake. My workload is mostly database related, though I also cache my main laptop in its entirety. In my experience, the sequential write throughput of the HDD is often the bottleneck, as the cache fills up fast and the HDD needs to write the cached sectors, so the faster the better. This is of course for a write-heavy workload. In a more balanced read-write workload things will likely be different. I should also warn you, that at full speed, you will burn through the write limits of your SSD fairly quickly. I'm currently on my third OX Vertex 3. SSDs though very fast, simply not very durable, so expect to replace them every few months.
Private server.